It's time for the Locals Only podcast with Dixon.
Sponsored by Syracuse Haulers.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the 95X Locals Only podcast. I am Dixon, joined this evening by the gentleman that inspired the summer of Gary, none other than Gary Carpentier. How are you tonight, sir?
I am well, my friend. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm enjoying the summer of Gary. Have you enjoyed the summer of Gary?
You know, it hasn't been too bad. You know, you just can't. I think it's the first time I've ever had a summer of me, so I'll take it.
Well, the single changing, still chugging along, still a buzz everywhere in town. I want to go in reverse order on the two shows that sort of have made up the first 2/3 of what we're calling the summer of Gary, which was you opening Festapaloozathon, which also included Milky Chance, Ripe, and the Kaleidoscope Kid. And you did that one as a solo act. Blew my mind, dude. Like,
Appreciate
such a great performance. There's people still talking to me about your performance that night. How did it feel for you?
I mean, it was. To even have the opportunity to be there was awesome. It was something I had been wanting to do for a long time, especially to be on, a stage like that. So yeah, it's first time really like performing my own stuff without a band, or without, a guitar in my hand. So really, something I've been dreaming about for a long time. It felt a little uncomfortable at first, but then it felt like, I've been doing it for years, which I have, but it's, just singing the backing tracks is kind of cool, but like being able to interact with the fans and use my body to perform is just, that's what I want to do. So, and I'm trying to do it now. And it was so cool to even be on the stage and get to hang out with those guys. And I got to talk to the Kaleidoscope Kid a little bit backstage, and he was like, dude, your shit's really good. And I was like, I appreciate that. And watching him do his thing is, it was a night I'll definitely never forget. So
You definitely made a huge impact on our listeners that were there for that show. I remember, our friend Kaylee that worked merch had quite a few people come up and ask for Gary merch. So like it definitely worked. I remember looking at the text line when I got back to work that following Monday and seeing a bunch of people that were really stoked on Festapaloozathon and went out of their way to say how much they really enjoyed you. Because it's cool for me, right? Like there's, I don't know, I come from a different side of radio, like obviously 95X was a different thing back in the day. It seemed like in the rock world or that active rock world, I won't use the word that I use for that type of music because some people get offended. But like when you're in that world, like there's always an expectation that there's going to be a million acts on, and
Sure.
at least 2 or 3 of them are going to be local. And then it just sort of becomes like this afterthought, right? Where like with certain audiences, and like, yeah, it's a local band. We'll do our Jello shots in the parking lot, right? Like, and then we'll go in when whatever Korn goes on. Sorry if you're a Korn fan, I guess. But yeah, so like in our world with alternative bands, there's, there seems to be less of that in. We've been truly alternative since 2016, so we just celebrated 6 years of alternative. I have to say that it's almost rare sometimes to be able to put a local band on one of our bigger shows.
Sure.
Like we had Trench on with Silver Sun Pickups back in 2019, and that was a process. Like I had to submit those guys and their music and all their social media like 3 or 4 times. I literally, we sent Changin', just the audio for the track as the submission to the agent who asked who you were. And I skipped over the whole NBC The Voice thing because I didn't want them coming at listening to the song in that regard, right? I wanted to save that for when they came back and were like, that song's great. That's a good choice for the show, which happened. And I was like, by the way, he was also, he's in The Voice. So like, I know that he's good. But there's a little buzz for you now within the industry from that show, which, I don't want to dive into here because you and I need to have a couple more conversations and stuff. But,
Sure.
man, man, I will tell you, I can't even imagine what you felt like in that moment, because like, I don't have kids, not going to have kids, but now I know what it feels like to be like a stage dad, right? Because like you got up there and you did it, and man, like this weird, warm sense of pride just flooded me.
Oh,
Right. Like I've got a couple of pictures that I took from the back doorway of the stage with you over my shoulder, just like, like
you haven't shown me those. I gotta
this
see
kid
those.
doing that. And then like I watched the first one from the side of the stage, right? I was just so stoked. And I was like, well, I need to see this from like the audience perspective, and
Sure.
went around front, and it was every bit as good as I knew you were going to be. So like I've been doing this a really long time, and radio is only like the last third of my career. The first
Sure.
2/3 was mostly me producing shows. And I've had this conversation with people. I've talked to my wife about this. Like, I don't have a good time going to concerts, because
Right.
like I sit and I pick apart what's going wrong and what needs to be fixed in the moment, because that's what I did. Right. Like, so like, there's been a couple of times where I've been at shows where like I'll watch like the lighting guy, like the LO miss his cue, and then I'll just look at him. Like I'll find him in the venue. Like at the amp, I know where the light guy is. So I just turn and I look at him like, dude, right? And then I'll just kind of like my attention goes back to the stage. I'll be like, oh, guitar came unplugged. Right. Like that's how
Sure.
I've been
Yep.
ingrained. So like what I started doing a few years ago, pre-pandemic, like 2017, 2018, was when we had an opportunity to put an artist like yourself on a bigger show. I forced myself to watch the audience instead. And it's amazing how much you can learn simply by gauging how much the audience went off. And here's something that I kind of saved. I almost told you this the other night, because Gary came and hung out at the house. We had a big fire.
Yeah, it was big.
It was a little out of control, but hey, safe. My drummer is a fire guy, so I can't get into how big that fire was. But so I'm good at figuring things out, right? So like I knew who was there for you, right? Like I saw you interacting with them before the show, so I expected them to be
Sure.
into it. But what I didn't expect was standing there videotaping changing and hearing literally the 7 or 8 people that were directly like around me singing every word to it.
It's crazy.
Right? Like
It's crazy.
it was one of those things where I was like, I know this was recently a meme too, but it made me sort of like think about that moment. Is like, if you ever like videotaped a live band and then you hear yourself singing along on it.
Right.
In that moment, I had recently seen that meme, and in my head, I'm like, dude, stop singing it. And I realized like, yo, you're not singing it. And then I held the camera and looked, and it's like these 2 or 3 people, my wife is standing like right here. She's singing every word. And I'm just like, so I kind of, and there's a moment, and I sent you the video. There's a moment in the video where I kind of lose you. And it's because I looked behind me, and like the 3 or 4 people that were directly behind me were at least knew the chorus and were singing it. Right. Like they would sing Stolen Dance from Milky Chance, which they did later in the night. And it was in that moment where like my brain went, this is what it's like to have a kid, bro. Look how proud you are.
Well, I appreciate that. I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. Damn. Yeah, it was pretty nuts to like, for me too, to have like people up on the rail or like on the gate there, like just watching me perform. They were so close, and I was like, wow, this is like everything I thought I could be. And it was I kind of liked the opening spot for shows like that too, only because you kind of watch it unfold on stage too. Like, you get your early people that are there, but then for me, it's almost like a refreshing and proud moment for me to be able to bring other people in and be like, hey, music isn't just later in the night, like it's starting now, and you better be ready. So no, that's so cool. I didn't know that. So that's sweet. That makes me grin from ear to ear. So
And here's one of like my weird theories on early openers, right? Is like, I mean, there were like 1,200 people there at the end of the night for the whole shebang, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there were probably 400 to 500 when you started.
Sure.
Those people that press up front that early love one of those bands on that bill.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So if they're that dedicated to that band, those are the people I want seeing the local bands, because they got there at 4, made sure that they were first in line so they could get the center of the rail right in front of Clemens, Robbie, Kid, whoever it was, right? And then paid apt attention to the entire show the entire time. I had a young lady at the end of the night on the way out, cleaning up, came up. I'm pretty easy to pick out of a crowd, and thanked me for like being so excited about you, Kaleidoscope Kid, and Ripe, because she's like, I never come early. I just always show up for the headliner. I called you when you were on the air today and you didn't answer because I wanted to know what time Milky Chance went on. And I came early because I didn't want to miss them. And I can't thank you enough because you were so excited about this entire bill and these 3 bands that I never heard, that I came early. I saw everybody and I loved everybody. So like for me, it's just like, those are the people that I want there, right? Like, because her attitude is the majority of the crowd, but those 40% that show up at doors ready to open their minds to some new artist that they've only heard one song from. Those are the people that are going to latch on to an artist like you and be the people that start your fan club, right? Or start some fan page on Facebook, right? Or hit you up and ask how they can help.
Sure.
There's dedication there. So I think the fact that we won on both sides. Usually it's my dog, bro. So that's cool that it's not Wiggles this time.
Come here, buddy.
My dog loves barking during podcasts.
No, the door was open. We had one of our neighbors needed help getting back in the back door. Didn't want him to bark, but here we go.
So yeah, dude, like, so to sort of wrap up Festapaloozathon.
Yeah.
You slayed.
Appreciate it.
The crowd loved it. And man, like, I want to see it again.
Yeah, me too. That was a fun gig. It was cool because I just like, I don't know, getting to be around people like that are grinding too, like Kaleidoscope Kid, Ripe, they were just so dope. It was so cool watching them live, and getting to talk to Clemens and the rest of the band for Milky was that was pretty awesome too. And knowing that they watched me perform too, like that was a cool moment for me too. So
there was a moment where I watched Philippe watching you.
Nuts.
Because I was just like, because it's only happened a few times over the course of my career where like you actually catch the headliner watching the local act.
Yeah.
Unless it's like a hardcore or a punk rock show, because
sure.
Pretty commonplace over there. But so seeing Philippe just standing like just a random dude watching you through the backstage door hole was just, again, a very proud moment, because it's like, yo, like this dude sees hundreds of bands on every tour because there's at least 2 or 3 festivals.
Yeah. Oh,
so
yeah.
Something's caught his attention that he's standing still in a moment where he could be on an air-conditioned bus eating catering. He's standing there because he wants to be standing there.
So cool, man. I'm truly honored and like, blessed, and just I've worked really hard over the last like year and a half to get to this point, and it's been, this is just the beginning. I'm still grinding and trying to get everything else going. So
this is just like the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah,
just the thing that instantly freezes when the wind blows because the temperature changes.
Yeah.
Right. It's just that little
airdrop right there. Yeah. Just waiting. Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
There is a lot to come. So working backwards, you showed off a different side of Gary Carpentier. May 29th, finish line in Brewerton for the 10-year anniversary celebration of Locals Only Fest. Did it with a full band, full instrumentation, including a horn. Played guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And man, like, first and foremost, the band set was dope.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah,
you guys, along with the Kiwis and Puddle, were the names I kept hearing all day. Because I think a lot of people weren't expecting you to show up with that band, right? I think some people were expecting you to show up with an acoustic guitar, maybe a bass player, maybe a drummer, right? Because that's, you know, sort of like the gigs that you had been doing, like up until that point, were singer-songwriter stuff or small like group things with friends like, you know, John McConnell, Cam Caruso, Tim Forbes. So I think you blew some people away with the fact that like you found the perfect lineup and instrumentation that wasn't identical to what was on your records, but made the songs work. Your energy was insane. The band was tight. The presentation was insane. And while I knew it was you at both shows, I think what made you solo at Festa so stand out and like interesting to me was the locals only set.
Sure.
Because it's Gary in both situations, but man, like it was just mind blowing for me because like after seeing the full band, because we had booked both gigs way ahead of time.
Right.
So seeing the full band, I was like, should have figured out a way to get the band Festa. And then I realized like, oh, that would have sucked for Kaleidoscope Kid because nobody wants to go out there by themselves at their full band.
Yeah.
So let's, you know, we'll stay the route, right? Like we'll get Gary out there solo. And again, fabulous performance. Loved it. Great first foray into that world. But man, talk to me about this band. Cause like, all right, I'm just gonna go out on a limb here, right? Because I'm the dude that also plays in bands, right? And I don't always have like a solid lineup. Just call up some guys, you know, that you played with, you send them the song list, you rehearse a few times, you go and you play the gig. I assume that's kind of how that came together because you had a lot of like players, right? Like these are guys that are in a bunch of acts. You would have never known, dude. Like I have seen touring signed platinum acts, right, that were not as tight and dynamic, and I know it's an inappropriate word for the style of music, but bombastic as that band was that day. Like there was a vibe, and I know that word is so totally overused,
but that was the best way to describe it for sure.
But there was an energy from what the six of you were doing that made the venue in its entirety turn and pay attention. So talk me through the band a little bit. And sort of like, let's contrast and compare the approach of the full band, multi-instrumental, and then Gary solo on the big stage, right? Because I assume that they've got to feel totally different.
Yeah, I mean, so up until you know, a couple of years ago, I really hadn't performed with the band much. I did it once or twice in high school, and you know, that was about it. And then I really only played music like in my room, or like, you know, just started playing out when I was like 21, 22. So I really hadn't, it was just solo. So I really hadn't played with the band much. But then when I got into the Silver Arrow band, you know, when we do weddings and corporate events and stuff, I'm fronting for top tier A-class musicians. So, you know, I got into the feel of that, and I was like, man, I really want to get my own stuff like full, you know, like we're producing it, like Steve Brown and I, for Brown Mixing Mastering. When we do songs together, I mean, we're recording it as just like acoustic scratches, but then we're, you know, getting all the other instruments and getting other people to play them sometimes. So, but then when I hear them, I'm like, man, I would love to perform these with the full band. So, fast forward to last summer, or rewind to last summer, I was playing a show with, it was All Poets and Heroes. I opened up, and then it was the Mike McKay band, and they started doing gigs again. So, Jack, Brandon, Joe, they were all playing with Mike McKay and my buddy Dylan. And they were like, hey, if you're going to be there, like, let's do a song together and stuff. And I was like, you know, that'd be great. So we did a cover of Sunday Morning by Maroon 5, funny enough. We just jammed on it. It was such a good vibe. We ran through it once in rehearsal and we just kind of took it. Then we ended up doing this show for 95X, and I was like, you know what? I really want to play with them again. So I just got everybody's number and shot them a quick text. And I was like, if you guys are open for this, let's do it. Brandon, the drummer, was like, rehearsals at my house. Let's set it up. Let's just go and just give us the songs. So I sent the songs out. Everybody learned kind of their part of the bass line of it. And then we just got together, and from the first rehearsal, like, again, I'll take your word, it was such a vibe. Like, it was so easy. They were spitting back different ideas, because when I play with people, I want their own personality to come out too. So that's the one thing I like about playing with other people, is that I want them to play for a specific reason, because I like what they do in their own way. So it kind of takes, every time we play a song I wrote, it doesn't sound exactly the same, which I love. So I mean, Brandon and Joe and Jack were so good with like the dynamics and like changing up stuff. We even threw in other stuff that like I hadn't even thought about. And it just clicked. So, I mean, we had, I think, 4 or 5 rehearsals before that. But like you said, just the day of, everybody was just rearing ready to go. We just knew that we were going to go out there and dominate, and everybody had they have such a good on-stage presence, and you would have thought that we've been playing together for like 10 years, and nobody knew that it was like maybe like a total of 10 hours that we've been playing together. So it was such an awesome experience, and it allows me as a like performer to be able to feed off of their energy as well, but get them involved, be able to entertain more than having to focus on just playing guitar and singing. So such an awesome experience. We have all the intentions of playing together more. We're even having the intention of writing together and stuff, because they all got their own things too, but it's a definite go as us trying to be a band and play more shows. So it was 2 days before my 31st birthday too, so that was a really cool experience, was just to get to be on stage and perform and hang out with a bunch of cool local talent, and at a great venue that was so cool. And Finish Line, I'd never been there, but it's a diamond in the rough there, out in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden you just walk in. Nicest bathrooms I've ever seen in my life in a bar. The nicest bathrooms.
Like fancy big city hotel lobby bathrooms.
Like crazy. Did not expect that.
Like, you're in Manhattan, you're at like the Radisson.
100%.
Had a couple drinks at the bar, you walk into the men's room. Those are the bathrooms we're talking about. And I know it sounds like a weird thing, right? That here's 2 dudes in the music scene talking about how dope the bathrooms at the Finish Line are. But many of you who frequent bars in central New York probably can attest to how gross, if not downright disgusting, most public bathrooms in general are. And then when you zero in on bars, it's even worse. So like, that's a selling point. Like, this is a place where like, if you're like, let's say you swiped right, and you're going on a first date and they happen to live in southern Oswego County, like, yeah, you want to meet at the Finish Line? Be like, yes, I do. Or like invite them there if you live in southern Oswego County, right?
Sure.
Like Brewerton area, Central Square, Pennellville.
Table for 2 in the bathroom.
Great food. They got a tiki bar and they got a dope bathroom. Your date's probably going to think that you're a high roller.
Dude, I was so blown away, and their whole staff was super awesome. And everybody from 95X was great. All the other bands too, it was cool to watch. Like, I haven't gotten, like, I see the Kiwis online, but I've like never got to see them in person, and that was cool. Those guys are so talented. And then Puddle was great too. I loved watching her, and I don't know, it was cool to be at that show, and I'm glad that we pulled the crowd that we did. And I look forward to more shows like that, especially with the band. So it's interesting too, because you said like comparing them. I like the band vibe more because it just gives off a different energy. It's more of like a party vibe. It's more of like a feel good thing. I don't mind the solo and backing tracks and stuff like that. That's totally fine. And I like to perform like that, but there's something about like performing with a live band that just takes it to a whole nother level. So
Well, the good thing is you write such good songs that they fit into both worlds really well.
Yeah.
Right? Like, 'cause you played Change in both days, and it was very apparent that it was that song both times. But when you do that song solo, for me, it has a very, for lack of a better way to put it, like a Fits in the Tantrums-ish sort of vibe. It's up tempo. You have sort of that same sort of ideology to your singing, right? Like there's a stylistic similarity. I think you're different in key and pitch, but from an energy standpoint, right? Like Fitz is probably the closest thing that I can point to when I think about that song Changing, if I'm looking to draw a direct line.
Sure.
With the band, it was a whole different thing, man. It was in a lot of weird ways, like when the horn comes in, right? Like when there were so many different elements of what was going on that it made me think more of Ripe. And Ripe always makes me kind of think of Chicago.
Yeah, I'll take that. I got somebody told me that they liked the I can't remember the gentleman and his wife's name, but when we did like the breakdown with that, I've been changed, and somebody told me that reminded them of the Killers, which like that made me go like, whoa, okay, chill out. But yeah, no, the Ripe comparison I dig, and I'll take that all day because their horn sections, Dylan's nuts, so Dylan could have played with them easy. But yeah, no, I appreciate that so much.
Well, the other thing that became wildly apparent to me that now I can pick out in the recording a little bit too, there's a definitive 50s thing that's happening in there, at least in my brain, and I haven't quite figured out what exactly it is. And my mind, to a little bit of a degree, has like I keep wanting to say Buddy Holly, but it's not Buddy Holly, right? Like homie from the Kiwis has that Buddy Holly vibe.
Oh,
not like in the Rivers Cuomo sort of way.
Glasses and all,
more direct.
I grew up a lot on like Sam Cooke, so that's a lot where my stuff comes from. Like a lot of like that crooner style. My dad was like a big Sam Cooke fan, so my brothers and I could sing every song front to back on those cassettes. But yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I love like that, and like the Jim Croce stuff. So I mean, it tries to. I'm glad that you pick up on that, because I do still take some of those aspects, and whether even subconsciously I'm integrating them or not. But yeah.
Well, what's odd to me is a lot of that stuff is making its way into this mainstream alternative music
for
movement
sure.
that's happening. Probably most prominently in Follow You by Imagine Dragons. There's a definitive sock hop-ish sort of vibe, like almost Earth Angel-ish vibe to a big part of that song. And it's just wild to me that is, a style and sort of scene that is from over 70 years ago now.
It's crazy.
70 years, man.
70.
Yeah, wild. So again, kudos on both shows, right? Like you absolutely had the best summer ever. We've got a little something up our sleeves so that we're going to give you kind of the best of both worlds, right? So if you missed one or both shows, we may be able to pull something together at a great big place. End of August.
Yeah.
It's great, and it's a great state. I can't quite say it out loud just yet because, there's a couple of things at play. But more than likely, you'll see Gary play 495X at the State Fair on our deck, which is adjacent to Chevy Court. And, of course, we'll time it so that you can see both shows, right? Like, see Gary, and then just turn your body 40 degrees and then see Bowser or whatever they have on stage.
Whoever's going to be,
that day. There was a time period with 95X that I did, 5 nights a week. And then, it was we always had 7. So it was like Thursday, Friday, and then Monday through Friday the next week. I'd have 7 acts out. And it just got to be too much, right? Like, it's a lot setting up the fair. Even getting into the fair with gear is rough. So I felt like post-pandemic, and that's a phrase we've all been saying a lot lately. I felt like post-pandemic, it was appropriate to sort of like plant my flag back at the state fair. And I felt like if we were going to truly do a summer of Gary, you gotta end summer at the fair.
You know, it'll be my first time attending the fair in like 10 years. So.
All right. Well, I'll
play some music.
I'll get you some fried dough. We'll get some cotton candy.
I'm down with it all.
We'll go down that giant slide.
Oh, that's happening. I might do that with the guitar.
They assume no liability for that, bro. If the guitar
fine. Be great for socials.
But yeah, so we'll have a little shindig at the fair with Gary. And in the meantime, stay tuned to 95X to get updates and make sure you're following this gentleman. It's Gary Carpentier Music across all platforms. If you haven't already purchased Beggin' from Apple Music, do that. It's like $1.29, I think. It's streaming on Spotify, but you'd rather send money to Gary, right? You don't want to give.
Yeah, I would love the 0.03 of a cent that I get per 30 seconds of the download.
Yeah.
That's what I love.
Wow.
Hey, tis the day in life that we live.
2022.
Yeah.
So once again, dude, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I know that I am overly sentimental and have a tendency to romanticize things, but like it was an absolute joy and pleasure for me to get you onto these two shows and not only prove to myself, but I think prove to a lot of people that you weren't just the kid from The Voice that had a friend in radio, that like you deserved every single thing that you've gotten along the way. And you proved it emphatically over those two shows. And we will put that exclamation point on that declarative statement when the fair rolls around.
I love it. And I'm super, I'm kind of the very same way in the sentimental side, but I'm very appreciative of you guys and everybody at Cumulus 95X. But yeah, it's been one of those things. I don't look at it as like oh, he was just in The Voice, so he gets these random things. And it's not. It's like, if I wish that people could see like the work that's gone into writing and producing and booking stuff and grinding on the gigs on like people don't know, and they just see, they're like, oh, he's so lucky. And it's like a age-old tale that, oh, he must just be so lucky. And it's like, no, I work my ass off. So, ever since The Voice, like, it's cool to have that as like a notoriety thing, but that's not who I was as an artist. It's not who I am as a person. It's something cool that I did, but it's gotten me like to push myself, knowing that if I work hard, I have a chance to be great at something. So I don't, it doesn't really affect me too much when people say that, but like, I know I work my ass off and it's paying off now. So that's all that matters. And I definitely the best is yet to come. So
absolutely. The future looks very bright for you, sir. And I'm infinitely proud of you and can't wait to see what comes next.
Likewise. I appreciate you, my Brian.
Thank you again for taking the time tonight. And thank you all for listening to the 95X Locals Only podcast, brought to you by Syracuse Haulers. Every Thursday, we drop a new episode at 2. Tune in next week at 2 to see who joins me. Until then, it's Dixon saying see ya. Gary, thank you.
Peace out.